Hello, my name is Jessica Faree. I am currently living in Raleigh, North Carolina, though I just moved here from Salt Lake City, Utah, so I'm still learning a lot about the area. I'm licensed to teach elementary education grades K through 6. I taught first grade for 8.5 years in Utah before leaving to stay home with my daughter Nora, who's now 2 years old. This fall, I will once again be teaching first grade at a new charter school opening in my hometown. Their focus is project-based learning and the Core Knowledge Sequence by E.D. Hirsch. I'm eager to apply the knowledge and the skills that I've gained throughout this program to my new school. In my spare time, I love hiking, camping, reading, and biking. Generally, I'm happiest when I'm outside and spending time with my family. What you are seeing on the screen right now is my e-portfolio created for my master's project in the Curriculum and Instruction Master's Program at the University of Kansas. I'm going to take you through a few of the headings here. This is obviously my home page. From here, we can go to the About Me section, just a little blurb, some information for possibly prospective employers. This is a link to a publication from 2014. It's in the Illinois Reading Council Journal. This is the heading for the content knowledge, the CAEP standards. And then from here, you're able to click on the individual content areas and the artifacts that I've chosen, and then the information that I've included describing these artifacts. And you can click and go through every one, and they're very similar. And then finally, this is my contact information. If there's any questions or if you'd like to know anything more about any of the artifacts that I've discussed or included in my e-portfolio, I would be happy and be happy to hear from you. So I chose to focus on the technology strand of my e-portfolio. I think it's vitally important to highlight evidence of my ability to show how students will engage with technology in my classroom. Initially, I had selected only the literacy timeline right here and the voice thread. However, I added this ebook as it serves as an excellent sample of technology that students would actually interact with in order to gain skills and knowledge, rather than the timeline and the voice thread, which could theoretically be simply a means to impart information. As I mentioned before, right here I did include the CAEP standards. As I've mentioned, I chose to focus on Standard 5, Technology, where teachers will model and apply technology standards as they design, implement, and assess learning experiences and environments to engage students and improve learning and enrich professional practice. So back to the artifacts that I've chosen to discuss today. We'll go back down to standards, Standard 5, Technology. The first artifact I chose is a timeline. It's from CT898. This literacy timeline included 10 to 15 events that are relevant in regard to the huge amount of progress we've made in the state of education within our country. I felt it important to include some of our earliest attempts at literacy instruction as it speaks to the progress we've made. I've included such things as Vygotsky's zone of proximal development because it is still widely used in classrooms today. Finally, I included recent legislation, for example, response to intervention, Common Core, as it affects all students and educators. Completing this timeline helped me to see how far we've come, but also showed me that our work is not complete. As educators, we must make sure that we are continuously striving to ensure the best instructional practices are taking place, which means that our ideas and our philosophies must be malleable. I specifically chose this artifact as evidence of my ability to model and apply technology because it was extremely engaging for me to create. I have often found that when I am interested in something, my students are interested, but if I'm not engaged, they are not either. The ability to create and use a timeline to engage learners is one that can be applied across subject areas and grade levels. It could be used to impart instruction, but it could also be used as an assessment tool. I would utilize this application as an assessment tool by having my students create their own timelines to show me what they've learned about the topic we are studying. More specifically, we study ancient Egypt in first grade as part of the core knowledge sequence, and that would serve as excellent content to populate a timeline of events which I could use to assess the knowledge and skills of my students. Many students enjoy utilizing technology in the classroom, and when they enjoy what they're doing, they are engaged in the learning process. This serves as evidence of my ability to model and apply technology to engage students in learning and to enrich my professional practice. The next artifact that I've chosen is a media analysis project presentation from CT898. This artifact is in VoiceThread, which is an application which I learned to use during one of my first courses in the program. Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger so you can see the whole thing. While I would not necessarily use this specific project in my first grade classroom, I felt that the skills and the knowledge that I gained utilizing VoiceThread were applicable to this content standard. The ability to use technology to create is a skill that all students must possess, so it's vital that I'm able to not only understand it, but be able to teach my students how to use it. This specific project was based on the media analysis paper for this class, in which I explored the impact of social media on transgender people and researched the portrayal of transgender people in social media. Finally, I examined the issues surrounding current transgender rights and the progress made so far. To be successful with this project, I had to include certain aspects vital to research: a clear introduction, the project methodology to include data collection and analysis, findings, and significance. These are all important aspects of writing a research paper and ones that I would need to include in my instruction to my students. The VoiceThread component of this project requires that you take the information you've researched and provide an overview presentation. This requires the ability to summarize vast amounts of research while utilizing a technological component. I had to gather the information I wanted to include in the presentation, arrange it accordingly, present it with detailed pictures and artifacts, and articulate clearly what my findings and recommendations were. I specifically chose this artifact because it provides evidence of my ability to model a technological component that would serve to engage my students in the learning process. Finally, the last artifact that I've chosen, see we're still under Content Area 5, is an ebook from CT740. Creating this ebook, it required extensive knowledge of not only the standards requirement for my intended audience, but also the ability to design an instrument of instruction that would meet these standards in a relevant and engaging way. I included this as evidence of how my students will engage with technology in the classroom. Each component of the ebook requires student interaction, whether they're clicking on words for an oral reading of the story, responding to prompts from the coaches, or utilizing the oral glossary for clarification. They must interact with the story to gain the full meaning and to provide evidence of comprehension. So, for example, this is one of the coaches on the pages. If a student comes to this page, they must click here, and assuming that your Flash player is working, it will prompt the student to interact with the text in some way. If they're having difficulty reading, they can click and it will read. They can click over here and it will read the whole story for them. And then another example, right here, this word in bold. If that's a challenge, if that proves challenging, they can click on that word and it will take them to the glossary, which will then read the word to them, and then provide a definition and an example. And then so clicking through this book, it's very engaging. They can click on the pictures to get a little bit more information about where the source. Every page is pretty repetitive so that the students can really kind of get an idea of where the story is going, and they can interact with it. Like I said, the words in bold, or they can click into the glossary and it will give them further explanation. Let's see. So the big ideas that I gained from these particular artifacts in Content Area 5 is that the ability to incorporate technology into our classrooms, it's vital to student learning and engagement. I need to stay on top of current trends in education so that I can be the best educator for my students. Before this program, I didn't know it was even possible to create an ebook, let alone use it as a valuable tool in my classroom. And, as I just went through and showed you, there's so many different ways that you could use that for so many different levels of abilities in your classroom. You could make it even more challenging for students who need that. I believe I made it at a level that would be engaging for all students, but it certainly would be not difficult to make it a little bit more simple and easy to understand, so that those students who are striving learners will still be able to access the information that they need. After completing this program, I hope to be a better educator and an advocate for my students. I'd really like to be able to serve as a resource for my fellow teachers, and I believe that I've now been equipped with the necessary skills and knowledge to do both. I've really enjoyed my time with the University of Kansas, and I feel like I've learned quite a lot through this program, and I appreciate all of the help of the professors and frankly my fellow students as well. This has been a really great experience. If you have any questions, or you would like to know any more about the artifacts that I've included in here, here is my contact form, and I would welcome any information that you have. And I thank you very much for taking the time to watch my presentation, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.